Quite a touching sight. Everyone standing at Fenway Park as Ted Williams takes the pitch for ball one. And they remain standing here for the most part at Fenway Park as Williams hit probably for the last time in a Boston uniform in this ballpark. There's a drive to deep right center. This may be gone. Brad way back there watching. Oh, good. Ted Williams.
I wanted to play baseball at the exclusion of everything else. I suppose somebody along the way wrote that I was a loner. Some of them carried it on through my career just because it was a start that way. And they referred to me as a loner, and I suppose there's some truth in it, but I'm not that much of a loner.
These are the Florida Keys. If a man wants to get away from the telephones and the distractions of daily life, he can find peace and solitude here. If a man, after 22 years of a great and successful career, and he likes to fish, he can find his own paradise here. One such man is Theodore Samuel Williams. He calls this his home.
Certainly it's something that I love to do, is to get in the boat and away I go. I'm sure that I enjoy that at times more than being with people. But I went along with my mother because she was such a devoted salvationist. I just felt that I had to go along with her once in a while. So I did. I used to have to march up the street with the Salvation Army band. I used to hide behind the drum because I was a little embarrassed, and I wouldn't be now, but as a kid I was, and because they're a wonderful organization, no question, and my mother certainly loved them.
Ted and I became friends in junior high school, but our real close friendship started at Hoover High School in San Diego as teammates on the baseball team there at Hoover. We ate lunch together practically every day, and as you can imagine, the conversation was almost always on baseball. Ted we used to get a kick out of listening to Ted say that he wished he had arms like Jimmy Fox because he'd just roll his sleeves up and dare any pitcher to throw the ball at him. And as it's turned out, he was able to dare the pitchers to throw it to him. In those days, we were convinced that Ted was a great hitter, but I don't believe any of us thought that he would ever be a 400 hitter.
You think we'll ever have another 400 hitter?
Well, I've always said that I thought that there would be another 400 hitter. I don't know whether I'm going to live long enough to see it because I've been saying this for 30 years now. And I still believe it can be done. I got back in the mix last summer, and I saw the pitching. I've been hearing for 8 years about what had happened to all the pitching. And the funny thing happened in the spring, as a matter of fact, where a pitcher in spring training was in the dressing room, and I heard him comment. He says, "Boy," he said, "I really feel sorry for the modern hitters," he said, "facing all this good pitching." And I thought to myself, now this is really funny. And the funniest part of it is that this same pitcher didn't even make the ball club. But he'd been brainwashed as much as anybody else that the pitching today was everything. And I saw it last summer. I think the pitching is no better, no worse than when I played. I saw pitchers that looked delightful to hit at, and I saw pitchers that looked pretty damn tough. And and this was the same way when I was playing. And I think that it's a matter of the hardest single thing in baseball again, not being developed as much as it was, and that's hitting a baseball. It was the last day of the season, of course, and I was all set to hit, and I got up to the plate, and I kind of dug in. And Bill McGowan, one of the greatest umpires that ever lived, just as the pitcher was really getting set to pitch, he disrupted everything and walked in front of the plate. Nobody in the stands knew that he had done this, and he wiped the plate. And he said, in order for anybody to hit 400, he said, you've got to be loose. So Frankie Hayes was the catcher. And just prior to this, he said, Ted, he said, we're not going to give you anything. He said, Mr. Mack says we're going to pitch to you. We're not going to try to walk. The game started, and the first ball I hit, and gee, I whistled one right by him. Gee, I really hit it on the nose. And, of course, that took a lot of tension away because I was, you know, hit first time up. Pretty good hit to get. And the second time up, gee, I hit another blue darter into right field, and it was a line drive. Well, now I've got 2 hits, and one's a double. Well, I got 3 for 4 that game. The next game, I got 3 for 4 again. So I got 6 for 8 for the day, which put me over the 400, 406.
In 1941, the American League is trailing when Ted Williams comes up in the last of the ninth. Claude Passo tries to protect the 5-3 margin of the National Leaguers. There are 2 on. Passo fires, and Williams connects solidly. It's gone into the second deck. A dramatic win for the American League, and Ted leaps up and down as he begins circling the bases. There's a big reception committee at the plate for Ted.
All right, let's put it on the opposite side of the fence. Nobody is perhaps better versed in the batter versus pitcher than you are. You faced a lot of great pitchers in your days in baseball. Pick your one pitcher.
Well, I'd have to pick, I think, Bob Feller. I always thought he was the best pitcher that I saw. I don't think that he was necessarily the hardest pitcher for me to hit because he was a stuffed pitcher. He was a hard-throwing pitcher, and I fared better against that type of pitching than the little cutie out there that, you know, had a little leafus and a little knuckleball, and boy, it never give you anything good to hit. Feller would pour it in there with something on it. I did a little better against that type of pitcher. And, but I know that every time Feller came into town, why, you know, he was just something special. I mean, everybody got geared up for him. And so I'd have to say Feller because he showed me the most.
Was he the fastest man, as fast as everybody said he was?
Well, he was as fast as anybody I saw, as fast as anybody I saw. But when you talk about curves, he had as good a curve as anybody I saw. Mm-hmm. Now, he was a little wild, which probably helped him in certain spots.
Kept people a little loose.
Yeah, but he still had enough control to do the job. The thing that I will always recognize in Feller that I don't think he's ever got enough credit for is that even when he lost his real extra stuff, he still was a good pitcher. I remember that he still won 15, 18 games, and he was not a hard thrower, not as hard as he was, but his control was better. He knew how to set his head as well. And he proved that he could get control. And I think before that, and I did play with Lefty Grove, he proved that too, because nobody threw the ball harder than Lefty Grove. But when I saw Lefty Grove, he'd win 12, 14 games, but he just did it with pinpoint control. And it proved that he learned how to pitch, and there's nobody can deny that Grove didn't learn how to pitch even after he lost his great stuff. And I think you could say that about a lot of great stuff pitchers. If they lost that extra stuff, they still maintain their mark as great pitchers through better control and setting up hitters better. And this certainly applied to Feller.
How about a Bob Feller description of Williams?
I know Ted very well. He's a very good friend of mine and a good friend of most all ball players, particularly ones that want to talk about hitting. Ted never rose to the occasion particularly like DiMaggio could. He just hit all the time, it seemed like. He had no weakness. Anytime a pitcher thought he had his number, why, he'd find out very soon he didn't have. Ted, when he first came up, I believe, was a better low ball hitter than he was high ball hitter, but then I really couldn't tell because my high fastball was better than my low fastball. Curve balls, he'd never swinging a bad ball when he was in his prime. Later on, of course, you may see him go for a bad ball occasionally from a left-hand pitcher that would sidearm him. But I never saw him go for a real bad ball. And Ted was not the emotional or dramatic type of ball player that DiMaggio was. He just hit all the time and had no weakness to my knowledge, and was by far the best hitter that I saw all the time I was up there, and I had an opportunity to pitch to Hornsby as well as Al Simmons.
Having completed his military service in the Marines, Ted Williams returns to spring training in Sarasota, Florida, to sharpen his fielding skills and his great love, hitting the baseball.
The 1946 World Series not far off. Attention was turned to Boston's Fenwick Park, July 9th, when the capacity crowd filled the park to see the pick of the major leagues in the 13th annual All-Star Game. Here's the starting infield for the National League team. Whitey Kurowski, third base. Marty Marion, shortstop. Red Schoendienst, second base. Johnny Mize, first base. And for the American League team, the starting infield. Ken Keltner, third base. Johnny Pesky, shortstop. Bobby Dorr, second base. Mickey Vernon, first base. And the opposing pitchers, Bob Feller, the strikeout king of the majors, and Claude Passeau, the dependable right-hander of the Chicago Cubs. In the National League half of the first inning, Red Schoendienst grounded out to Mickey Vernon. In the American League first, with 2 men out, Ted Williams walked. And then Charlie Keller of the Yankees came to bat. Here's the pitch. And Keller connects. A long drive. Deep into the right field bullpen. A home run wallop that scores Ted Williams, making the score 2-0 for the American League All-Stars. In the American League fourth, with Higbee pitching, Williams wallops a tremendous drive, deep, and into the center field bleachers. A home run wallop for the third tally of the game.
Rip Sewell was having an outstanding year. He'd been using this blooper pitch, and I remember before that game, I said, I don't think anybody can hit that thing out. And I remember Bill Dickey saying, he said, I think you could hit it out.
In the American League eighth, Rip Sewell was on the mound facing Ted Williams when he threw Ted his famous blooper pitch. Let's take a look at the height of that blooper pitch. Ted stepped into it and slammed it out of the park. It's his second home run of the game. And it scores Kramer and Stevens ahead of him.
Well, you know, when I first...
And Boudreaux come along with a shift that everybody said, well, they used to do that against Babe Ruth. Well, I hadn't seen it before. And
Ted Williams used to bunt the ball over the wall for a home run, and consequently I thought about using a shift against him. But I did not put it into practical use until 1946 at Fenway Park, when he was continuing to beat our brains out with base hits into right field or into the stands. Of course, Ted Williams, one of the greatest hitters in baseball, if not the greatest, in my opinion. The only way you could stop him was either walk him or pitch behind him.
Ted, in the era that you played baseball at your peak, you were always compared to Joe DiMaggio. What were your opinions of Joe as a ball player?
Well, I think he was the greatest player I saw. I would have to say all-around player that I saw. He was at his greatest when I saw him, and I never saw anybody that was all around as good, I don't believe. And although I played with Jimmy Fox, but he was a little bit off his top. Even though the year I came with the Red Sox, he had hit 50 home runs. Certainly saw Stan Musial, another great all-around player. I didn't see as much of him because he was in the National League. I saw Charlie Gehringer at the tail end of his career, and I remember everybody when I came to the big leagues, everybody said, boy, will you see Gehringer? And he had style, he had class, he had smoothness, and he had a great ability, and certainly his record speaks for himself. But I think that if I had to name the one guy, I'd have to name DiMaggio, because he did everything great. Probably the biggest disappointment of my career that I didn't have a good World Series. We won the pennant easily, and I had an outstanding year. In fact, I was the most valuable player that year. I went into the series
feeling that I would hit good. I mean, I felt that I would hit good any time about that stage of my career. But I did have something happen to me. St. Louis and Brooklyn had a playoff. And so the American League got up an all-star team, and we played in Fenway Park. We were playing before nobody because it was just really a practice game, but still it was important that we keep playing. And I did get hit in the elbow. I've never made that as an excuse for my poor showing in the series. But it's possible it did have a little effect on me because I didn't get a chance to play anymore till the day before we went into St. Louis. But it was a great series for them and very disappointing for us, and especially to the Red Sox because they hadn't been in a World Series for such a long time. We were favored to win, and probably because I didn't hit in that series was probably the main reason we didn't win the series. I remember certainly the only home run that I ever hit inside the park, and it was in 1946 against Cleveland. That had earlier in that year pulled this drastic shift into right field, and they brought in the left fielder in a little bit, feeling that if I hit the left field it would be just punching the ball out there in that empty space. This particular game I did hit one hard, real hard in the left center, and of course way over the left fielder's head. And we were in the old Cleveland ballpark, which had a long left field. And I made an inside the park home run. This game, we won 1-0. Tex Houston, our pitcher, pitched a terrific game. And we had to have a terrific game because it looked like we were never going to get enough runs to win a ball game to clinch the pennant. We had the thing sewed up, but we were just loose and just couldn't win another one. But we did clinch it with this, and certainly it was an important home run, one I'll always remember.
Well, when I came back into the service for Korea, I was bitter. I felt that I was being used, and I was extremely unhappy about leaving baseball for the second time. In Korea, I was on a mission well above the 38th parallel on a big coordinated flight with the Army Air Force. And on this particular mission, I went in too low on my run, and I got hit with ground fire, and I managed to get back over the field and had to make a belly landing. My plane was on fire, and I want to tell you, I was as scared as I've ever been in my life. I was lucky to get it down, and I managed to walk away, and I was just one lucky guy.
Having completed serving his country for the second time in the Marine Air Corps, Ted Williams once again prepares to return to play baseball.
A couple of incidents happened that I was a little demonstrative and showed my displeasure with the boos and the crowd. Once I expectorated and caused quite a stir, and it was fined, and promised Mr. Yawkey that I wouldn't do anything like that again, and I was even ashamed of myself. But I really was put on the ban by the writers the next night, one of the biggest crowds that they'd had in Boston, because it was the first family night. One of the greatest thrills I ever got in baseball was the ovation that I got the first time up that night. And it just so happened that this is one of the greatest ovations I ever got, and it was such a sincere thing. It certainly made me think about how wrong I had been about the fans, and that I made up my mind then and there the fans were for me. And certainly my big concern was hitting the ball. Boy, I knew if I hit the ball, that was going to take care of a lot of things. And certainly I could do the hardest thing to do in baseball, the easiest. And the easiest thing in baseball I neglected too much. And as a result, I got tabbed as not a very good outfielder. And in fact, that during most of my career, I was a pretty good outfielder.
Quite a touching sight. Everyone standing at Fenway Park as Ted Williams takes a pitch outside from Jack Fisher for ball one. And they remain standing here for the most part at Fenway Park as Williams hits probably for the last time in a Boston uniform in this ballpark. There's a drive to deep right center. This may be gone. Fred way back there watching. Oh, good. Ted Williams. Well, if you had written it that way, nobody would believe it, so I even tried. Ted Williams has hit his 29th home run, the 521st of his Major League career.
At the end of the 60 season, I certainly wondered about what the future held for me. I certainly didn't know at that time. But I did know one thing. I didn't want to be a Major League manager or manager anyplace.
You're a spinner, huh?
Yeah.
Spin fisherman. Gee whiz, it'd be easier to fly fish in this stream, wouldn't it? With all these rocks? Huh?
Yeah, probably.
Heck, and this is easy, too. Put that rod down a minute and come on out here and I'll show you how to do a roll cast. And this is an easy cast. Come on right on out here. This is all you'd have to learn how to do. You see what I'm doing right here? I'm just letting this line come right back to the rod and flipping it out. Try it. I'll hold on to the rod with you first time and show you. Right there. Now, once more. Easy does it. Right out again. Now, you're on your own, buddy. Hey, that's good. Do it again. Now, all you have to do is practice a little bit, and you'll become an expert. That's real good. What's your name?
Freddie Styler.
Freddie Styler, huh?
What's yours?
My name's Ted Williams.
There's one thing that's for sure in the life of Ted Williams. He's always been a man of achievement and controversy, yet he has always been his own man. Ted seems to walk in the eye of the hurricane with turmoil all around, yet he has never backed up from his opinions. Many of the press tried to degrade his great talent, possibly because of personal jealousy. Some politicians during the Korean War attempted to use him as a scapegoat for their own personal ambitions. Yet the fans and the ball players remembered Ted Williams as one thing, possibly the greatest left-handed hitter ever to play the game. Someday, perhaps, a youngster may come along who is willing to sacrifice, sweat, work, and work again to achieve the perfection that Ted Williams always sought. If that happens, the game of baseball will be better off for having had that talent. If Ted Williams is remembered for nothing else, his goals alone, his achievements, if they stand as a standard to youngsters coming up to play the game of baseball, he will not feel that his life has been in vain. I don't believe that Ted Williams, in any moment of his life, has ever forgotten the game of baseball. And I don't believe baseball will ever forget him.